Hi, I'm Tom Devoto, a St. Louis personal injury attorney, and some of my friends and relatives have asked me to comment on the recent verdict that was reported earlier this week for $181 million arising out of a grain elevator explosion in Chester, Illinois. First, let me qualify my comments by saying that my knowledge of what actually happened in Chester is based strictly on what I have read in the newspaper and what I have heard or seen in other news media. Second, I need to point out that a little over 30 years ago, I was involved in a team of attorneys that investigated a grain elevator explosion in St. Joseph's, Missouri. And at that time, I learned that an ounce of grain dust that has the right amount of mixture with oxygen is actually more explosive than an ounce of dynamite. The engineers or chemists call the perfect mixture of grain dust to oxygen as a stoichiometric mixture. Obviously, the grain dust can explode or burn in a rich grain dust to oxygen mixture or a lean grain dust to oxygen mixture. But if the mixture is perfect, an ounce of grain dust has more explosive power than an ounce of dynamite. My understanding in this case is that the people who were hurt were not employees of ConAgra. They were employees of contractors that had been hired to remove equipment from the grain elevator. It's also my understanding that the grain elevator had not been cleaned in decades. My assumption is, therefore, that in the process of removing the equipment, that the grain dust in the elevator was disturbed and became airborne. At some point in time, some type of a spark took place, a spark from a drill, a spark from an electrical switch being turned on, a spark from an open flame if there was welding that took place. It really doesn't make any difference. Once the grain is airborne and a spark takes place, it will be ignited, it will burn, and it will expand with explosive force. The size of the verdict is large. I need to point out that the case took place in a federal court, not a state court, and the jury pool for this federal court came from a large area in southern Illinois. It was therefore undoubtedly a very diverse jury. Juries generally don't return these types of large verdicts unless the defendant did something that angered them. My assumption is that the fact that the grain elevator hadn't been cleaned, the fact that ConAgra had to have known of the explosive potential of grain dust, and that they did not take necessary precautions to either educate the workers for the companies that were removing the equipment or take other necessary precautions, including cleaning it, aggravated the jury, and the result was a very large verdict. If you have any other questions about areas of the law, I have a lot of information on my website. Please feel free to look around. Thank you for looking at this video.